What's going on, everybody? It's your boy James back with you for another NFL season prediction video. So, yesterday we talked a lot about the AFC East. I did a lot of predictions on the AFC teams, AFC East teams last night with the Bills, the Patriots, the Dolphins, and the Jets. So, for today's section, we're going to be doing the AFC North team. So, this first team that we're going to be focusing on is the Cleveland Browns. Now, a lot of people are having some questions as far as the Cleveland Browns go. There a lot of those questions simply revolve all around Deshaun Watson. Is he going to be able to play a full season? How long is he going to be suspended for? What are they going to be able to do during the time of when he is suspended? Who's going to be this backup? Is it going to be Baker? Is Baker going to be there? Or is Jacoby Brissett going to be there and backing up Deshaun Watson until he's out of suspension? And a lot of other questions is, can the Browns finally make the playoffs now that they have a new franchise quarterback in this league? These are really difficult questions to find answers to because this is a loaded AFC part of the league this year. So, it's to me it's very difficult because I think if the Browns want to get into the playoffs, I would have to think that they would most likely would have to try to win their division. Do I think they're going to win their division? It's going to be very tough. As we all know, in their division is the Ravens, the Bengals, and the Steelers. And I think the Bengals are the best team in that division right now. So I'm thinking they are more likely than not to win the division. But it's very difficult. This is a very difficult AFC side of the league this year with so many great teams and so much talent this year that it makes things very difficult to decide who's going to be in the playoffs this year, who's going to win their divisions, and who's going to make it far into the AFC championship games and who's going to make it to the Super Bowl. It's all hard because this is a loaded AFC, very loaded. So let's take a look. We'll analyze a little bit of the Browns schedule and we'll see what I think the games they can win and what games they'll probably lose, either with or without Deshaun Watson. So, as of recent times, Deshaun Watson is going to get suspended regardless. I don't know if it's going to be for half the season, if it's going to be like a quarter of the season. I don't know. I'm going to assume right now that Deshaun Watson is going to be somewhere back around either week 5, week 6, or even week 7. So I think this is like around the time frame of where I do think Deshaun Watson might be coming back. Don't quote me on that. I don't really know, but we should find out more information within the next week or so of how they're going to handle his suspension. But I do think that he's going to be around. He's going to be back around this time frame right here, I believe. And then the questions around Baker, are the Browns going to keep the Baker Mayfield, or are they going to move on from him officially and trade him to another team? I don't know. Those are all really, really interesting thoughts and questions to really think about. But right now, let's just take a look at the schedule and see what games they can do without Deshaun Watson. And looking at week 1, they're going to Carolina to play the Panthers. Now, the Panthers right now, as of right now, they're naming their starting quarterback with Sam Darnold. The Panthers last year were a team that could have been under the radar, a team that could have probably found ways to make the playoffs, but what really was keeping them back was Darnold, and that offensive line was being atrocious, and without Christian McCaffrey for a lot of it, because Christian McCaffrey was out for a lot of the season last year. He was in and out, in and out, in and out. So, but I do think with a healthy Christian McCaffrey, I think this is what gives the Panthers a little bit more of an advantage. If he can stay healthy in this game, the Panthers can find ways to beat the Browns early because this is where we're looking at with either Jacoby Brissett is going to be starting or it's going to be Baker Mayfield. But here's the thing. The Cleveland Browns have a strong running game with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. So that kind of makes things difficult. But then you have to look on the defensive side for the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers have a great seven front. I think they are one of the most underrated seven front teams in the league with their defense. And their corners have and their secondary have improved some. The biggest loss that they had in the offseason was trading up Stephon Gilmore to the Colts. It was their one of their biggest downsides, but the Panthers are a tough team to really figure out because they don't have a terrible roster, but the quarterback is the issue. And they did draft a quarterback with Matt Corral, but is Matt Corral going to be able to play this year and with the Carolina Panthers? I don't know. Right now, Carolina is very keen. They're very settled with Sam Darnold and starting him. So it makes things very interesting. I don't know, but I think the Browns can find a way to just do enough to beat the Panthers because of their run game. I think these first several weeks, especially without their quarterback, I think that's what they're going to have to heavily rely on is their run game because their run game is what makes this team a strong team. So I think for the first time in quite a long time, I do think the Browns will find a way to beat the Panthers in week 1. Then week 2, they play the Jets at home. This is the first home opening game. I do think the Jets are really good on the defensive side of the ball. They have one of the best run defenses in the league, and I think that's going to make life very difficult for Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. I think they're going to have to really rely a little bit more on their passing game, and this is going to really decide on whether or not they're going to be able to trust Jacoby Brissett or Baker Mayfield to make some of those plays. I think it's going to be very difficult to beat for them to beat the Jets because the Jets do so well against the run, and they should be improved this year in that aspect because last year the Jets had struggled on both sides of the ball. But I think the Jets are an improved team, and I think they will find a way to beat the Browns early in the season. I think this is a good. I think the NFL did a good job with scheduling the schedule for the Browns. I think this is good for the Jets, especially because the Jets is very likely to find a way to win one of their early season games, which hasn't really been done for them in a little while. So I think the Jets do take it in week 2 to the Browns. Then week 3, we have Thursday Night Football, and it's the Steelers visiting the Browns. Now, the Steelers, on the other hand, are also having a quarterback issue with either Mitchell Trubisky starting or Kenny Pickett. Right now, we're going to assume Mitchell Trubisky is going to start. And without Deshaun Watson, the Pittsburgh defense is still very good. Very good. And I think Mike Tomlin is going to give the Browns some difficulty early on because it's an early on season. And this is where like the Steelers are still going to try to find a name for themselves as well as the Browns. So, and I think with very similar to what the Browns are going to do, I think the Steelers are going to have to find ways to limit the mistakes. And I think they're going to have to heavily rely on Najee Harris to really make the big plays in the run game to beat the Browns because I don't know how good the quarterback in Trubisky is going to be this early in the season with a new team, a new scheme. So I do think they're going to split. I think the Browns are going to split with the Steelers this year. But I think in week 3, we're going to go for right now. I think the Steelers do beat the Browns early in the season because the Browns do not have their starting franchise quarterback yet playing for them. So I think the Steelers are going to win on Thursday Night Football in week 3 against the Browns. Then week 4, the Browns go to the Falcons. I'm picking the Browns to win in week 4 on Sunday. The Falcons right now, the only great players that they really have on that team is Cordell Patterson and Kyle Pitts, really. Those are like the two best players on that team right now. That's going to really be able to score some points, if I'm being completely honest with you. I think the Browns take advantage of that. I think the Browns can beat the Falcons in week 4. And then week 5, you have the Chargers going to the Browns. This should be an interesting game because then we're looking at Deshaun Watson, and he might be coming back around this time. But however, the Chargers are one of the favorites in the AFC this year, in my opinion, and they're in a loaded AFC West division. But I think the Chargers, because of Justin Herbert and what the Chargers have done in the offseason, especially on defense with adding Khalil Mack onto that roster, this Chargers team is going to be a lot tougher on defense this year than a lot of people think. So I think this was a shootout from last year, and I do think the Chargers are still a stronger team than the Browns. So I do think the Chargers are going to win in week 5, regardless of whether Deshaun Watson or Jacoby Brissett or Baker are going to be there, starting quarterback. But I think the Chargers are just an overall, I think they're a better team. I think they have a better roster on offense. I think their defense is better than it was a year ago. So I think the Chargers should win that game against the Browns in week 5. Then you're looking at week 6. You have the Patriots in Cleveland. And I think because of the coaching, this might be where Deshaun Watson might be coming back, which is going to probably make a difference for the Browns. But the Patriots right now, I believe, are a better coached team. And I think that's going to really help the Patriots and Mac Jones and that run game a lot more. I think the biggest question really for the Patriots right now, they did add some receivers on their roster, but the Patriots defense is kind of one of the biggest question marks because they don't have the great secondary players like they used to. And I think the fans are still concerned about whether or not the run defense is going to be able to stop teams, running teams like the Browns are going to be in this early stretch of the season. But I think because Belichick is I think they got the better coach in this with Bill Belichick. And I think I think the Patriots are gonna win this game early on. I'm just saying that because we're not really sure about Deshaun Watson if he's going to be playing in this game. But I think the Patriots right now in this early stretch of the season, I think they're just going to be a better team, a better coach team per se. And I do think the Patriots can beat the Browns early in this season. So I'm going to take the Patriots in that. Then week 7, the Browns are playing the Ravens. Now, this is going to be a really, really good game this year. I think this is going to be very similar, in my opinion, because I think this is where Deshaun Watson might be starting to come back. As we all remember from like 2 seasons ago, we know on a Monday night football game, it was in Cleveland. The Browns and the Ravens were one of the best games of that year, the COVID year, and it was a very high scoring shootout game. Now, and Baker had an amazing game that night. Now that Deshaun Watson is on this team, this could be a very similar result to what we saw 2 seasons ago. Because Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson going at it, I think Deshaun Watson's team that he's on now was a better team than the Texans were. So I do think the Browns are going to split with the Ravens this year. I do believe that. But it's very hard to decide whether or not, because in this early stretch of the season, the Browns really need to try to win as many games as possible if they want to even be considered to be in the playoff talk. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to pick the Ravens to win in week 7. And then I think later on in the season, in week 15, I think the Browns can take that win to the Ravens. I think the Ravens are more of a questionable team right now than the Browns are, simply more because of their passing game. The Ravens don't really have a good enough passing game right now. And I don't know what direction this Ravens team is trying to go to. Are they focusing more on the run? Are they switching over to the run? Or are they going to do what the Eagles do and have the quarterback do everything? I don't know. The Ravens do have a lot of questions to me, but once we get to the Ravens, we'll talk about that when I get to that video. But I do think the Ravens are going to win in week 7. And then I think the Browns will come back and beat them in week 15 at home. Is the way I'm going to go with that. Then in week 8, the Bengals play the Browns on Monday Night Football. Just like with the Ravens, I think the Browns are going to split with the Bengals this year. The Bengals are a great team. I think they improved some on the roster, especially on that offensive line. I think they did improve and made some changes, but I do think they're going to win on Monday Night Football for whatever strange reason, and it's because it's a division rival. This is a division rivalry game, and they're always tough games for them. So, but I do think that the Browns are going to win in week 8. The Browns are, and then I think the Bengals are going to beat them at home in week 14 because of that division rivalry game. And overall, I think they're just I think the Bengals are a better team overall, but I think Deshaun Watson is going to want to try to make his point as why he wanted to get traded from the Texans. And I think with all the talent that he has now in Cleveland is going to make the big difference for him. So I think in week 9 here, they're kind of looking at like a 3-5 record, which isn't looking too good because that what it's going to really kill him is this early stretch of games right here. This whole first half of the season is what's really going to kill them the most without Deshaun Watson. So you're looking at a 3-5 record right now. Then you go into week 10, you're coming off the bye and you play the Dolphins. I think the Browns do beat the Dolphins in this. I think Deshaun Watson will be back at this point in the season. The Dolphins are a team they're kind of hard to figure out right now. I don't know if they're going to be really good or they're going to be really bad or what have you. But I think the Browns are overall they have the coaching. They're definitely got the coaching. They definitely are more improved in their quarterback position. I think you have more of a run game, which the Dolphins, for whatever reason, in the last couple of years, do not like to run the ball. I don't know why. They have 2 good running backs. Now the Dolphins do, but they don't like to run the ball that much for whatever reason. And I think the Browns like that run heavy game when they play these kind of tough defensive teams. And it's going to be interesting. I don't know if they're really going to be able to. I don't know if they want to rely on so much the passing game with Watson. And I think in this game they're going to want to really rely more heavily on the run game for this game for the Dolphins because I think the Dolphins have a strong defense. But I think when you run the ball a lot, it kind of gets teams to figure out a little bit your defense. But with this Dolphins team, though, there's still a lot of question marks around them. Is their defense going to be good? Is their offense going to improve? But I think the Browns right now, even with Tyreek Hill for the Dolphins and Jalen Waddle and all those guys over there, I still think the Browns are an overall better coached team right now, per se. And I think they find a way to win that game. Then in week 11, you play the Bills at Buffalo. I do think the Bills are going to beat the Browns here. I really like the Bills. I've wanted them to really do well since Josh Allen started there. I think the Bills are just a better team. It's a different Josh Allen that Deshaun Watson is going to be facing at this point in the season. The last time they met, it was a different Josh Allen. He wasn't quite as elite as he is now. And now Josh Allen has a lot more help on that offensive side of the ball. They have more receivers, so I think they're going to rely on that. I think the Bills do find a way to win that game in week 11. It could be a good game. I think it could be a potential shootout per se, but I think the Bills on the other side of the ball are just a better team. Very similarly coached like the Browns do, but they're going to rely more on their passing game for the Bills. So I'll take the Bills in that one. Then week 12, you play the Buccaneers at home. Now, this is a good game, though, too, for the Browns. The Buccaneers are one of the best teams in the NFC. There's no question about that. Never count them out. Never count out Tom Brady. But it is a good game, though, for the Bucs because now that now they're facing a team that has a franchise quarterback. And we're not really sure how this Tampa Bay defense, in their specifically in their secondary, how they're going to improve this year. Are they going to be able to stop the pass as much? I think Deshaun Watson helps this passing game really become a big thing. So this is kind of an interesting game to me because I could see this game really going either way. I really could. I think the most difficult thing for the Browns in this case, they're going to have to figure out a way to use Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt in their passing game because I don't know how good their run game is going to be against this Tampa 7 front. I really don't because the Tampa run defense is an outstanding run defense that it's hard to run the ball on them. And I think if you're Kevin Stefanski and this Browns organization and coaching staff, you want to be able to figure out a way of how you can get them in the passing game. Like obviously with these rest of these games too, you want to be able to use them in the passing game. But I think it's going to be very difficult to run on the Tampa Bay defense because the Browns like to run. They love to run the ball. So that's kind of what it's going to make it difficult for them to be able to do that. This is a tough game. This is a really tough game. I might have to go back to this game. I'm going to go back to this game, and I'm going to go into week 13 against the Texans. They play in Houston. This is a Deshaun Watson revenge game, and I think he does get his revenge, and he wins in his old home stadium. But the Texans aren't right now. They're just not a very good team, in my opinion. I don't have a lot of faith in the Texans. I don't. Not so much their quarterback as much. I think Davis Mills is a bridge quarterback, but he's not a great quarterback, if you know what I mean. And there's not a whole lot of talent that really scares you. Their defense isn't good, and I think they're going to get better in the future because of that draft that they had. But I think it's going to take a while for this Texans team to be able to live up to expectations without Deshaun Watson being there. So I do think the Browns do win that game. Then week 14, we talked about that. The Bengals win in week 14. The Browns beat the Ravens in week 15. Then you go to week 16, and then you play the Saints on a Saturday on Christmas Eve. I think this is going to be a really interesting game because I think the Saints are a very sneaky, good team that may give the Browns some problems. And then you're looking at this point in the season because then at this point in the season, you're looking at, are the Browns going to be able to make the playoffs because of that AFC West? That whole division is solid. So it's going to be tough for the Browns to beat the Saints, but I wouldn't be too shocked if the Browns did find a way to beat the Saints in this game. But I wouldn't be shocked if the Saints did find a way to beat the Browns. It really wouldn't shock me that much. So I do think this game could go either way. And it's like the Bucks. It's a very hard game to really predict. So I think this is a really tough one to decide because now you're looking at the outside looking in to the playoffs. Yeah, I'm going to go back to that. And then you're going to look at week 17. The Browns are going to go to Washington Commanders. I think the Browns win in Washington. I don't know. I don't know about Washington this year. I don't know how good they're going to be. I don't know how bad they're going to be. I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of faith in Washington. So I think the Browns win that game. Then week 18, you play in Pittsburgh at Heinz Stadium. I think the Browns do get that last win there of the regular season. Then it kind of looks down to week 12 and week 16. I think they're going to lose to the Bucks. But then I think they can find a way to beat the Saints. So if they do win the Saints game, let's just say they're going to win the Saints game right here. You're looking at a 9-8 record. But now you're thinking about the conference now. You're thinking about, are they going to make the playoffs now? It's very difficult. But I think a 9-8 record does sound reasonable. But I think that's the highest they can be because I think this early stretch of the season is what's going to cause them the most problems. And I don't think 9-8 is a terrible record for a team that hasn't had their starting quarterback in the almost the first half of the season. I think this is a pretty reasonable record for them to have because this early stretch of the games is what's really going to kill them. They would need to win those games early on, especially if you're playing in a really loaded if you're playing in a loaded division like that. So I think 9-8 is a pretty reasonable record for them. 3-3 in the division, that's fair, I think. So yeah, I think 9-8 is a pretty good record for the Browns. I think they do have a fair chance of making the playoffs, but I think towards the end of the season it's going to be very slim for them because of that AFC West, the Fab Four right here. That's going to make things difficult for them. So yeah, that's my prediction on the Browns. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment down below. And for the next video, we'll do the Pittsburgh Steelers and their season prediction. We'll see how they do.